Good morning. I'm Warren Roberts. I manage the SAP Business One division at Leverage Technologies, and I believe most of you already know me since I've been working with SAP Business One for almost 23 years now. From all of us today, a warm welcome to today's session where we'd like to take the time to briefly update you on SAP's current development focus and strategic objectives for SAP Business One, and to introduce you to two partners that can bring added value to your SAP investment. Directly after my update, Phocas will be sharing their financial statements and budgeting solution, and then Trailed will share their accounts payable automation solution. Just to some housekeeping, the session today is going to be recorded, and we will be sharing that after the session at some point in time. We will be having an open Q&A where you can type your questions if you have any. We'll respond to those at a later date than today. We won't be responding directly today because we have a fairly tight schedule, so you can expect those updates at a future point in time. So from me, a brief SAP Business One update. We will be doing a more extensive Business One update later in the year, which will become a bit clearer as to why as I continue through this brief update. For now, the key takeaway that I want to share with you is the scale, size, and success of SAP Business One. As you can see, the SAP Business One has received a strong commitment from the SAP board with development funds and resources. The version 10 roadmap, the version 10 is the current version that we're on now, extends to December 31st, 2026. And in 2027, SAP will release version 11 according to the official roadmap, and then 12, 2 or 3 years down the line from there. SAP Chief Partner Officer Carl Farbach recently said, SAP continues to invest in the future of SAP Business One. Our partner ecosystem remains at the heart of this success, driving autonomy, resilience, growth, and winning new customers every day. One of the points, if you look at some pretty impressive numbers that I've got up on the screen there, what's not on that screen is that 3,000 net new customers choose SAP Business One every year. So that's net new names for SAP. So they're very keen on what we would describe as, I suppose, the net new name engine for SAP. And another point I'd like to make on this slide is that one of the key strengths we've found for our Australian customers as they expand and grow their businesses into other countries has been the availability of B1 in other countries, supporting legal and fiscal localizations, foreign language capabilities. We've deployed it into Southeast Asia, into Europe, obviously into the United States, even South America. So it's very powerful in that regard. This slide is just to sort of as an enabler for my next slide. It illustrates on the right, the circle on the right shows the core capabilities, which most of you would be familiar with. These are the modules and functions that people use every day. And on the left, you'll see some of the digital technology enablers. So if you think of SAP Business One as a platform, SAP are making the business logic available through digital enablers, which things like the SAP Business One service layer, the SAP Business Technology Platform, analytics, mobile technologies, and so on. You'll notice AI in that list, and I'll touch on that in a moment. The Business Technology Platform is a mechanism which SAP will use to support their embedded AI, but I'll touch on other options in just a bit further down the presentation. The first thing I want to talk about is the SAP Business One web client. This is the highest priority for SAP, and most resources have been dedicated to the delivery of the web client for the last 2 years. The web client functionality is planned for parity with the existing traditional GUI client by the end of 2026. And we are seeing visible results here. Each release, we see extensive new offerings, and I suppose extension of the existing functionality into the web client. The screenshots from the Featureback 2602 release, which I've just been running on my local machine, and I can tell you that so far I'm very impressed with it. The web client itself has functions and features that aren't available in the GUI client, like importing business partners in a more easy, simple fashion, and other quite exciting features which we'll show you. We will very likely present the web client in much more detail after the FB 2608 release. So you see the FB stands for feature pack, 26 is obviously the year, and 08 being the month. So in August, most of the features and functions are planned to be rolled out. We think that'll be a good time to show it to people, likely early in September. One of the things with the web client, it uses SAP Business One service layer to deliver. And you'll see partners like Trail, for example, are using the Business One service layer as well. So it is a key part of the technology for SAP going forward for digital enablement. With the partners, or at least customers who have extensive use of add-ons, where they've modified the behavior of Business One using an add-on into the GUI client, those will need some work because the web client is a very different technology. But SAP has provided extensibility to the web client, so we will be able to support that. But it might take slightly longer for those clients to be able to completely do away with the GUI client. SAP plans to support both the GUI client and the web client going forward, so there's no reason to panic. But the obvious benefits of the web client are that it's very easy to access. You use it from a web browser anywhere in the world. You don't necessarily need a remote desktop connection. So there's a lot to love about what they're doing here. By the way, anyone who's on version 10 already has access to the web client. But as I say, it's not necessarily practical to deploy that to every person in the business because it doesn't fully support all the functions yet. Last thing I want to touch on, again, this is just a teaser for something we'll be working on and showing you much more during the year. We and SAP, like everyone else in the world, are very aware of AI and the growth and I suppose potential for AI. So I just wanted to let you know that there are existing offerings already available from partners that plug into SAP Business One, and we're evaluating them. As you can imagine, there are a lot of AI startups and lots happening in this space. So we don't want to show you everything that's available straight up off the bat without knowing which ones offer the best value and which ones are going to be successful. SAP themselves will be offering through, this is a sort of an idea of how they'll be doing it, enabling partner extensions and integration with the SAP AI services. And then, of course, selected use case scenarios that they provide themselves directly through their AI core integration. And you'll see that here. This is a snippet actually from the 2608 web client. So the AI the embedded AI from SAP Business One will be offered initially, at least, only in the web client. And you can see just an idea of what for those of you who've never used the web client, as I say, we'll do a lot more on that in the future. But this is typically what it looks like in this case, the managed business partner screen. And you'll notice on the right-hand side there, highlighted in red, they've got this Ask AI, which is uses contextual data, in other words, data from the screen, and widely available across the web client. So we will showcase that in a lot more detail. So as I promised you, a very brief update. The key takeaway: SAP Business One forever, full commitment from SAP at board level. So it's not going anywhere, and they are building out the web client to modernize the technology and providing AI as well. Is the takeaway that I'd like you to have from my very brief presentation here. I'm going to hand over to Phocas to discuss financial statements and budgeting. Phocas is a business intelligence partner that we've worked with for 10 plus years, and we have many mutual customers successfully using their products. I'll introduce David Chambers in just a second. I would like to say that on the AI topic, both of Trailed and Phocas are also having embedded AI and machine learning in their products as well. So this is a key theme, of course. David is for the past 15 years. David's 20 years of experience in business systems and finance technology, specializing in ERP and accounting solutions. For the past 15 years at Phocas, partnering with CFOs and finance teams. And without further ado, David, I'll hand over to you.
Cool. Thank you, Warren. Let me share my screen. It's Monday, I can work, ready to go for the week, ready to dig into the numbers to find something that's going to move the needle. 10 a.m. comes, my COO asked me for a P&L by department. I spend the rest of the day elbows deep in Excel, building out my reports. Don't get anything else done. On Tuesday, I become the go-to for sales data. My sales manager comes to me, asks why my sales figures are different to the sales figures the purchasing manager is working from. Again, I'm elbows deep in data. No one knows which is the correct version of the truth, and there's no clarity across the organization. On Wednesday, I start my month-end reporting. It's manual, it's in Excel, it's full of broken links that I have to fix every single week. I spend hours fixing the report rather than analyzing it. On Thursday, it's my month-end it's my reforecasting. Multiple templates to multiple stakeholders come back in different versions. No one knows which is the correct version. We're the bottleneck of consolidating this data together in the finance team. On Friday, we realized that we're the only people in the organization that know how any of these models work. We're exhausted and we're still unsure which version of the truth to believe. Thanks for your time today, guys. My name's David. I'm the lead pre-sales consultant here for Phocas in the APAC region. The story that I've told you there is a little bit exaggerated, but these are the types of things that I hear from finance professionals every single day of the week. And so what I really want to talk through today is what are those issues within the organizations, what's causing them, and then what good looks like at the end. And then we'll show a little bit of focus about how we can support you in that process there. So this is the current reality in finance. 40% of finance leaders identify inadequate systems and tools as their department's most glaring problem. They're asked to do more with less. They've got competing demands. They've got tools that kind of work, but they're still very manual and they don't quite fill the gap that is required of them. They're not purpose-built and they don't know which version of truth to believe. What are the challenges that cause that though? So the challenges that cause that is multiple disconnected systems, it's manual consolidations, it's manual month-end reporting. It really means spreadsheets, but it's getting a little bit of data from SAP, it's getting a little bit of data from over here. They've got a small subsidiary which lives in another accounting package that needs to be all consolidated together. It causes issues on a day-to-day basis. Everything's disconnected, no one can collaborate. Typically, one or two people in the finance team knows how this model works and no one else can there. And as you can see, 50% of finance staff are there, according to Deloitte, are updating and creating reports rather than finding insights into those, into the business. So what's the cost? These are the things we hear all the time. 79% of finance teams are swamped with manual work. Wasted days with manual reporting. I don't know how many people say it takes me 7 days to close off the month at the end of the year and end of the month, and we'd like to get that down to a couple of days. No one understands decision-making process. No one has the data to make decisions, or if they are making a decision, it's siloed. Finance make one decision based on one set of data, sales make another decision on another set of data. From your budgeting and your forecasting perspective, how can you look forward when everyone's making decisions on different data sets and using different inputs into those models? Obviously, that then drives frustrated teams. And again, you're kind of reactive. You're not proactive. You're not saying, hey, this is where we want to go. We're really just kind of saying, hey, something happened yesterday that we need to address, and you're constantly chasing your tail. Is what we typically find. So what does good look like? Let's rephrase what we just ran there. What good looks like is I wake up on Monday morning, get into the office. I have a single source of automated source of truth. No manual data manipulation. I spend time digging into the data rather than building a report. On Tuesday, my automated dashboards are up to date. I'm not emailing anyone. I'm not discussing data issues between sales and purchasing or finance and purchasing It's all on a single dashboard that everyone can view and everyone can see. On Wednesday, my forecasters rerun. I'm not chasing departments. I'm not chasing people for input. It's a fully managed workflow process, all controlled in a single system without any issues around version control. On Thursday, my dynamic reforecasting is done. I spend time doing scenario and stress testing around my forecast and my budgeting process rather than consolidating data together. On Friday, I realize it's integrated, everything's integrated, automated, FP&A process. I have much less stress and I can spend time on communicating insights and strategy confidently rather than being constantly elbows deep in a manual reporting process. So that's what people say after they've implemented a tool similar to Phocas. And Phocas's goal here is to really make people feel good about data. And we do that across business intelligence, financial reporting, budgets and forecasts, rebates, and CRM. Today, we're going to talk about our budgets and forecasts tool, but closely aligned with those, and I'll have to touch on those as well, is our financial statements and our analytics piece, because they really are the drivers of your budget process there. Phocas is a tool that sits over the top of all your systems, whether it be SAP, whether it be a CRM system, whether it be some external data you're receiving from suppliers, that can be consolidated together to drive your planning and your budgeting process there, with tight integration into your financial reporting around actual versus budget versus forecast analysis there. So just a quick intro into who Phocas is while we're here. Phocas, global business, headquartered out of Sydney. CEO still is in Sydney. Recent investment towards the end of last year from AKKR out of San Francisco as a venture capital. So there's been a large investment into the business. There, 3,000 odd customers, 50,000 odd users, 95%, 94% customer retention rate, and 25 years experience in data, extracting data from systems like SAP, bringing it in to Phocas, and then giving the ability to report on that. So let's get into a demo. Let's show you what that good looks like and how we can solve those problems that you've got going down those different slides that I was talking to today. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the end in mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to jump in here and I'm going to start with a dashboard. And I'm going to start with a company performance-wide dashboard. Because effectively what you're wanting to get is this information out to your team members quickly and easily. Now, the business that we're looking at today is a distribution business. They're selling lights and lamps and kind of electrical goods here across multiple regions, as you can see here. And as I scroll down, you'll see I've got this work. There we go. As we scroll down, you can see I've got things like actual versus budget in terms of revenue. I can scroll down here. I can see profitability. I can see my revenue versus my previous. So all this information is coming from your SAP system combined with your budgeting process. It also allows you to drill down into this data. So when you see something that's interesting that you want to drill into, say it's your sales versus previous, we can drill down into that. And so what we want to think about now is when we're building our systems out, we want to have a curated set of data that can drive our budget. So we're going to drive it from our sales information here. You might budget by sales rep. Here's a list of my sales rep. You might budget by customer. You might budget by by product. You might budget various different ways depending on what your organization is. So Phocas is a tool that we bring that operational data in to the tool, allowing you to analyze and slice and dice to get that one version of the truth for you to make that decision to then project forward into the future, as well as keeping your finger on the pulse with that dashboard view that we started with there. So This is the type of stuff that we can do from a data analytics perspective. I can drill down into my customer and see for that sales rep all the customers and whether a customer's performing well or a customer's performing poorly. So my sales team is taken care of. But what about what most of you guys are? Finance people looking for budgeting, looking for actual versus budget from a P&L level. That's where our financial statements tool comes in. And as you saw here on the left-hand side, we have the ability to quickly and easily jump into my financials reporting now and show the similar view of that. These are forming the data sources to build out our budgeting process and then to build out our reporting process as well. So now what we're seeing is our financial statements. So you'll see here a very simple financial statement here, a basic profit and loss. On the left-hand side, I've got company, I've got country, I've got department, I've got branch. So I've got all your cost centers, your profit centers, etc., depending on how you've got your business set up, are listed here. My business here is a business with multiple companies, as you saw, trading in Australia, the US, and the UK. So I want to break down my P&L by company. So I can simply go and just drag that up to my nested view here. And now you'll see that's going to refresh my P&L. And now I can see my revenue for my different trading entities here. So I'm not having to rebuild this data in Excel every time in order to report on that. In order to see that in the UK trading business, I had an actual of 18, a previous of 16 and a budget of 16. So I'm actually up about 12, 13% on my budget there. It's simple drop and drag. It's simple interrogation of that data right down to the account level. If I look in the Australian trading business for travel, I can go right down to the individual account level, and I can actually get right down into the nitty gritty. Why have I spent $17,000 in my fringe benefits account when I budgeted for nothing in that view? I can simply right click on that cell and I can drill down into the information. So those typical delays that we see people, that we talk to people about and finance people about is like, how can I close my month end off quicker? How can I easily get access to the data that I need to make decisions in the organization without having to put it into Excel, without having to rebuild that report every time? This is the type of stuff that they're doing. Because I've gone from a P&L to a P&L by country, to an individual country, to an individual department, to an individual account. And now I can see all the journal entries that fall into that category. And if you scroll across, I can see the values, I can see all the different accounts and all the different details that are available to us there, really simply and really easily from here. If I reset that and I go back to the start, we're not just talking about a single layout of our P&L, right? We understand that finance need to see it in one view, the board needs to see it a slightly different way, a branch manager or department manager needs to see their P&L in a specific way. We have the ability to do that. Let me just reset my date ranges here and tidy my page up slightly, and you'll see what we can do here. So I've got actuals, I've got previous. I might just throw my budget in here, make sure my budget's in there correctly. And maybe you say, hey, I don't need to see it in this level of detail, or I want to add in a percentage of revenue calculation, or I want to change the columns. It's a simple drop down. It's a, hey, I don't need to see the previous, so let's remove it. Hey, I want to see a percentage of revenue calculation built in there. Or I want to build in the latest period so I can see how I'm performing financial year to date, but also just for the current month that we're looking at. And you'll now see here, I've got May 2026, I've got my percentage of revenue column versus my budget. And as I scroll across, I've got the ability to see my actual versus my budget versus my revenue for my entire period there. So very flexible in the format that you need, right down to the ability to customize those columns for you. So you can really define column A as this, column B as that, and column C as this. You've got the ability to do that. No need for code, no need for VLOOKUPs, no need for that Excel consolidation anymore. But what about the structure? What about the lines here? So what is a travel expense? And do I need this level of detail, or do I need to roll it up in a different way? And I don't want to have to rebuild those 4 or 5 different times in Excel, because we know that just takes too much time, and we know there's risk of errors and all those types of things. So what we have the ability here to do is go in and say, hey, let's look at my P&L for my board. Select my board P&L, and now it's the same view that we saw earlier there. I've now got a board P&L with the same columns, but it's a much reduced P&L. And the same thing is available for our balance sheet and our cash flow statement. I can have a balance sheet in a detailed view, as we can see here, but I can also then go in and look at it from a board level, or I want to look at a direct or indirect cash flow. You've got the ability to build this out and change this out as much as you need. And this is customized within Phocas. So I can go down here and I can manage my statements. I can edit my profit and loss report that I see here. And you can see how easy it is. If I want to add a new line or a new row, I can simply go in and add in a new row. If I want to do a calculation, it's literally point and click. So I can say, hey, my total revenue is my sales plus my other revenue, but I also want to minus my rebates from it or minus something else from it to give me my total revenue number. It's all point and click. I can simply click into that section and just add in another calculation line, and it'll just add that in as my total revenue in that case there. So it's really, really simple for you guys to build these out without having the need to go in and build these VLOOKUPs, build these consolidations from there. Your account groupings as well are managed within Phocas also, meaning that what is my sales account in this P&L might be slightly different in a different version of P&L. I know in some businesses that I've worked with, they have a services arm and they have a labor, they have a product sales arm. You might want to split that out in one P&L, but join it together in another P&L. So that's what we could do with our map accounts. I can select my map accounts functionality here, and I can now pick every single account and I can assign it to a specific location on my P&L over and above what's set up in your ERP system if you need to there. So this is so easy for that multiple version of statements, multiple versions of a reporting process there as well. I'll cancel that one out and I won't save those today. What we also have in our financial statements tool here before we jump into the budgeting side of things is the ability to bring in external data sources. So bring in number of employees, bring in number of invoices that you've processed, because we want to start to build out some KPI information as well. And it's not just pure financial KPIs, it's KPIs around efficiency ratios, average invoice value, average freight per transaction, all those types of things, along with your standard stuff like return on assets, asset ratios, debtor days, all the different things that you're after. But as you can see down here, I've got 1,300 customers, I've got 16 new customers. My revenue per customer is a little calculation, sales divided by customers. And in this case, I'm losing $55 per customer. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on in this view. So all these things are getting consolidated into Phocas, so you can have one place to go to do all your reporting, but also it becomes one source to use to drive forward into your planning and budgeting process there. So let's actually build out a quick budget in the last 10 minutes or so that I have in my session. So let's go in and say, hey, let's build a budget. Let's take this data that we've already got and roll it out for, in this case, we might say FY26. Actually, I might change that to calendar year of 2026. But just for today, I'll say, hey, let's build my calendar 2026 budget. I'm going to take that. I'm going to go next. I'm going to fill this out and I'm going to say, hey, my budget period is going to be from January of 2026 through to December of 2026. the period that I want to use as my baseline. So what I want my prior period to be used to project forward for the next 12 months. I'm just going to use 2025's data, actuals here. It could be the last forecast you did from the prior year. It could be 10 months of actuals and then 2 months worth of forecast, depending on exactly how deep into the prior period you are. But it's really easy for me to then build this out. So I can simply select a couple of buttons, click next. I can then go in and add in my levels into my budget and say, hey, I want to do this by company. I could do it by company, by branch, if I wanted to, or department. Many levels we can go down, but you'll see how easy it is. I've now gone in, taken last year's numbers by company, projected them forward for the next 12 months, and now I have a budget built, or the beginnings of a budget template. Underneath that, if we go into travel, you'll see I've got my different entities here. If I look after the Australian trading entity, I can look at travel and entertainment and I can say, hey, let's just bump that up by 10% because that's what I think it's going to be. I can simply click on that little spread button. I can add it in and say, hey, proportionally by row, and bump that up 10% and save it. And there you go. It's complete. It's added that in. I can then put a note around this and say, hey, let's put some cell comments and just say 10% increase and then submit it. So now we can see the audit trail that we have. And this is something that typically isn't available in your tools that are used a lot at the moment, is who changed it, when they changed it, what was the reason that they changed it. It all is tracked within Phocas at a cell level. So if I was to go in and say mileage and say, hey, that's going to be $10,000 in that month, I can simply go in and assign that, add a comment to it, and I'll say road trip, right, submit that. We can see all the details around that, who changed it, and then also the full cell history, what it started at, what it's currently at, and how it got there. Now, I look after Australia. I work out of Sydney. The UK team need to do their budget. The US team need to do their budget. So all I'm going to do in this case is go into the US team and just say, hey, you've got your baseline here from last year. I'm just going to assign it out to you. And I'm just going to say, hey, we will say that Sam Russell is going to be the US input of that budget. Sam's now going to get an alert. He'll log into Phocas. He will see just his lines of the budget, depending on your security level that you assign out to Sam, or he'll see the entire budget, but just for the US. So depending on how you set that up, all those concerns around security are gone. You can simply and easily just go in and build out your budget, assign out your different users to the different areas that they need access to, and their profile takes care of everything for you there. Sam goes and enters his budget. He submits it back to me. I accept or reject that budget. So the full workflow approval in there, exactly how we got to that number, is all taken care of within the tool as well. So as you can see, templating's done, workflow's taken care of. The next part that we need to think about here is that we speak to customers about is, how do I do my revenue? My product sales, yeah, it's $33 million in Australia, but it's actually made up of customers and products and services and all those things, right? So how do we model that? And that's what we were speaking about earlier. I have some sales data in here. In this case, you know, my big business is a distribution business. We're selling light switches and things like that. So I'm going to bring in my data to drive my revenue line. So I'm going to say, hey, this is going to be my sales driver. I'm going to select my database, which is going to be my Phocas sales database. And then I'm going to fill out a couple of options and say, hey, I'm just going to map it by sales rep in this case. And I'm going to take last year's data, right? So I'm just going to run through a little wizard. Yeah, I'm going to budget by value. I'm going to go next. I'm going to link my companies together so Australian trading businesses. So I'm joining my sales and my P&L data together here. So you can see how systemized this process becomes, that I can very easily go in and bring in additional data without having to do VLOOKUPs, without having to merge data in Excel and spend all that time building it out. I now have, by trading entity, by salesperson, I have a sales budget that I can share with my sales manager that automatically drives my revenue lines. So you'll see that's now driven. So again, one system, one template, security's taken care of. One sales rep's not going to see the other sales rep's numbers just because of the security that's been set up and the workflow that you'd set up in your budgeting process. What are the other things that people need to do in their budget? The magic word that we hear all the time in Phocas is, I need to do a three-way model. So we can bring that in. So I can go in and add in another driver tab. I can bring in my balance sheet. I can fill out a few options around my balance sheet here. I can include a cash flow statement. Oops, I'll do my direct. I can include a cash flow statement and I can finish that off. It'll ask me a couple of questions around what's my retained earnings accounts. It'll ask me around my bank account. I'm just going to set up one bank account in this example today. And then we can go save and finish. And so now what we have is a fully integrated three-way model. I can now link these different tabs together. So I can link my trade debtors here. There's a little tool. We won't have time to go into it today around setting up your accounts payable driver. On average, a customer takes 30 days to pay. What does that do to my trade debtors position? And therefore, if I go to my cash flow statement, what does it look like from a cash perspective? So you can now see here, I'm getting 4 million in from my customer. I'm paying 3 million out to for my inventory. I've got cash to employees and suppliers and things like that. I can now project going forward that I'm going to start this period with $11 million. I'm going to end the period with 10.6. So I'm going to burn about $500,000, $600,000 in the period. So all this becomes one model. But what we all know about this one model is that it's as soon as you build it and as soon as you publish it, it's wrong because the world changes. So what we have in Phocas is the ability to go in and save this as a forecast. So I can do one click. It's automatically going to bring in your actuals for the period that you're looking for, that you're reporting, that you've already completed. And then it's going to give you the ability to do your 9 months worth of forecast, for example. Or if you do a 6 plus 6 or a 1 plus 11, 2 plus 12, 2 plus 10, it's all available. And you'll see it here. This is an example about what that output would then look like. So I can now see what my revenue is. I can see what my forecast number is. I can see whether I'm up or down on my actual plus my forecast or my actual plus my budget. All the information is available and I can edit it at any level. And then that's going to give me an accurate cash flow statement at the end to show you where we think your cash is going to be based on that process that we've gone through. So all of this is available within Phocas, and all of it is available back in our financial statements as well for my reporting process and back in my dashboard as well. In our financial statements, here's my budget column that we spoke about. Well, I want to bring in my forecast column. So I just go in and I tick my forecast. So we're completing the loop. We publish it from that tool we were just looking at into Phocas and it completes that process. And you'll see now there's my forecast number for May built into my KPI report. So that's a 30,000 foot overview of Phocas. Hopefully you can see that we touch on a couple of most of those key pain points around the reporting process, around that budgeting process, and really showing you how you can systemize it into a nicely controlled, manageable tool there. So thanks for your time today, and any questions that you have, guys, throw them in the chat, and as we mentioned earlier, we will get them answered for you after the session. And I'll pass it back to you, Warren.
Thanks, David. Thanks very much for that. And I'm not going to waste too much time just introducing Shraddha Samaya from Trailed. Shraddha is the global head of sales for Trailed. Trailed is a slightly newer leverage partner than Phocas, but we've been working with them for 2 years now, and many mutual customers have found great success with their AP invoice automation solution. So in the interest of time, I'm going to hand straight over to you, Shraddha.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Warren. Appreciate it. And thanks so much for having us. I'm going to get cracking and get straight into it. I have about 15 minutes with you all, so I'll respect your time as much as I can. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Excellent. So thank you. Like Warren mentioned, I'm the Global VP of Sales at Trailed. Been here for a number of years, and I'm just keen to let you know what Trailed does for SAP B1 customers, just so you can assess whether it's something that's worth looking into a little bit further. So some of you might have kind of already be using Trailed or maybe sat in on a couple of presentations we've been doing. But just a very quick background story. So the heart of what sparked the idea for Trailed is actually a real story that impacted both of our co-founders, Adam and Brad. So both Adam and Brad worked in their respective family businesses. Both were unfortunately severely impacted by fraud within their accounts payable process. In Brad's specific case, an email or an invoice was sent to the AP inbox, which is always how it starts. And that email was sent from Brad's uncle, who was an executive within the business, and it was requesting that the invoice be paid. That then followed the stock standard AP workflow, where the email made its way through to the standard approval process within the business, and ultimately the invoice was paid. Later, when they kind of heard from the real supplier, it actually came to light that Brad's uncle never sent that email. His business email had been compromised. He had been impersonated, and this resulted in a sum of over $100,000 being paid from within that invoice. Adam, our other co-founder, very similar story, like a kind of example of where an invoice landed in an inbox and a significant amount of money was lost. So this kind of led to both of them coming together. They were friends from uni as well. So they kind of came together and researched what possible solutions exist in market that can address the twin issues. So something that makes your accounts payable faster and kind of more efficient, but combining that with financial control and protection so that in making things faster, we don't miss a beat and we don't pay an invoice that we're not supposed to pay. So they kind of looked around for a ready-made solution that already existed, and they couldn't find one. So they kind of came to realize that because it didn't exist, there was a gap in the market that if these two things, efficiency plus control, could be brought together, then that could be something that many Australian and overseas businesses could benefit from. Even worse, when they kind of came up with their idea, they realized that our credit cards have always on detection. So when someone spends money on our credit card that looks a bit suspicious, or maybe from overseas, if you've forgotten to tell the bank that you're going overseas, then you'll actually immediately get a notification that that card has been blocked. And that type of protection already exists from the banks on our personal credit cards, where the limits are often much lower than obviously our B2B payments. So their kind of mission and value prop for Trailed and SAP B1 was bringing that same level of banking security that we already have on our consumer credit cards and building that into your business AP process. So at the beginning of this kind of adventure, when they started to form our solution, they started talking to other business owners within their network, and they very quickly realized that it wasn't just them that kind of had been defrauded. This is a wide problem that was felt within their network, and they quickly realized that it was a growing problem, not just for Australian and New Zealand businesses, but like I mentioned, across the globe as well. There's growing sophistication with AI. There's now many ways that these villains can get their hands on the lifeblood of our businesses, and families are being hurt, businesses are being damaged, all due to leaking of kind of funds via invoice fraud. Other businesses were also failing because of kind of, again, greedy, deceitful people preying on goodwill and trust, where real suppliers get impersonated and you don't really know the difference and what to look for. But there's also a kind of shame that goes a little bit hand in hand with being defrauded. Sometimes we feel stupid as a result. Maybe we kind of think that someone in the business should have been smarter or more diligent or more on top of it. And scammers absolutely prey on this type of damage that they inflict on individuals within a business as well. And the stats show that because only 1 in every 7 businesses actually report fraudulent incidences. So it's not surprising that we're kind of increasingly vulnerable to this type of social engineering, clever fake invoices, and countless other ways to trick everyday businesses. In terms of the dollars, the estimated impact on invoice fraud today is around 900 million. And that's again with only 1 in 7 people actually, or businesses actually reporting the incident. So some of the bigger companies that get defrauded, like Facebook or Google, of course, it's publicity when that happens, but they can generally absorb the loss a little bit easier. But for small to medium businesses, not so easy. So why trailed? Trailed is chosen by customers for a number of reasons. The main reasons kind of we hear is how quickly and easy the onboarding is, how we offer a two-way sync with SAP B1, and how trailed allows finance teams to focus on more complex and value-adding tasks as opposed to data entry or anomaly detection. So I will show you like maybe a 3 or 4 minute demo of an invoice going end to end and what trailed kind of brings to your organization. But essentially it's designed with the goal of helping businesses be more efficient and more secure. So a general day in the life of an AP team looks generally a little something like this. An invoice arrives via email to your AP inbox. Some companies print it from there and other companies continue via email. They enter the invoice manually, either a header level or a line level, depending on how you're doing your coding. If you have any kind of purchase orders that you need to match to, then that kind of goes on in the matching process, whether it's two-way or three-way matching commences. Then that invoice is passed to an approver, especially if there's a variance in that matching process. And the approver timeline, again, hit or miss. Some approvers do it quickly, others take a little while, sometimes missing early payment discounts or deadlines as a result of that. And sometimes suppliers need to be chased because there's a discrepancy in the invoice in the first place. Then, once it's approved, it makes its way to a batch payment where the CFO or the person responsible for managing risk in the payment takes a look through the batch file and makes sure that they're comfortable. For this check also, varying degrees of scrutiny. Sometimes it's a spot check, a very quick spot check to make sure that they're comfortable. Sometimes they look a little bit deeper, which of course can take some time. So generally for companies with more than say 100, 200 invoices max, this manual process can be really debilitating. So I'd love to show you again, it's only a 3 or 4 minute demo. It's certainly not going into the full depth of the solution, but I would like to show you just kind of like an end-to-end workflow over a couple of minutes. And then we kind of do have, for those interested on like on our website or on YouTube, a bunch of testimonials, a bunch of case studies. But really the theme as to why trailed helps businesses is kind of all around efficiency and that combination of security. So whether it's your accounts payable team and managers, or whether it's your finance team or managers, controllers, CFOs, it's kind of like putting together both of their motivations around doing the job well, which one is around efficiency, getting it coded correctly, making sure there's no double handling involved in the process. And then one is around securing it on its way out, make sure it's landing in the right supplier's bank account, and make sure there's nothing untoward or no unnecessarily charges within the invoice. So what I'm going to do is I'd love to just share my screen very briefly. And just show you a very quick workflow so you can get a bit of a sense of how trailed kind of does this within SAP B1. So that should be coming up for you now. So essentially this is the trailed in tray. I'm just going to pick up one invoice in the interest of your time. So everything starts as a draft, which is where your supplier has emailed a copy of the invoice to your AP inbox. We kind of piggyback off that inbox and forward it through to trailed here. And essentially this is what the AP team sees, a list of invoices ready for processing. So if I just pick one of these invoices up for processing, the interface is pretty clean. On the left-hand side will be a copy of the invoice. On the right-hand side, all the fields will be auto-extracted. So everything from the invoice number, you're just looking at that red box to see where the system's extracting all these data points from, including the PO number there and the invoice date. So I'm just kind of following that red box around to make sure that the system is extracting the data from the right spot. Our extraction tool is enterprise grade, first of all, and it's also proprietary, so we own it, which means that we are able to boast about a 95% accuracy straight out of the gates for an invoice that we've never seen before. Even if we get something wrong, so just say this price here, the red box, if I'm not happy or comfortable with where that price is being picked up from, every field has machine learning. So I kind of get to scroll through and you can see that red box jumping everywhere and just pick the right spot where the system should have picked up that data from. And we'll memorize that for next time. So next time you won't have to teach the system to do that. Because there's a PO number here, 4890, it will go into your SAP B1 system at that point and it'll look up that number. And what it's essentially trying to do is match that to your card code and your GRPO. So here it's telling me that I have 4 line items that match that particular number. Again, it's going to auto match. It's going to auto match whether it's 2-way or 3-way matching. It's going to call out any variances that might exist and then route through to an approver based on those variances. In this case, because it's just freight that's that the variance is consisting of, I can just go ahead and hit the freight button and that's taken care of the variance. But in real life examples, it might genuinely be a unit variance or a quantity or description, something like that. And it will, of course, go ahead and highlight which line that variance exists on. So you still have to do something about the variance, like route it through to an approver or maybe check with the supplier, but it's going to very easily route or at least highlight where that variance exists. From there, this invoice can be sent to an approver. So I'll just put my name in there. But of course, where possible, we'd have kind of approval hierarchies so that there's no need to manually put the approver in and go ahead and hit submit. Once it's submitted, it makes its way to the approver in this pending review queue. And this is where the approver makes their approval assessments. So as the approver, I've got 2 invoices waiting for my approval. One is showing me it's a low risk invoice and one is showing me it's a high risk invoice. So this should be one that I could fly through and approve pretty quickly. Again, I'll have a quick look. It's telling me it's low risk. It's still giving me a warning and it's saying that the invoice contains a line from that's outside the purchase order. And that's just because I added the delivery charges there when I was coding this one. I'm going to go ahead and hit approve. This next one, it's telling me it's high risk. The reason it's high risk is because the payment information on this invoice does not match what we have in our SAP B1 master data for this supplier. In addition to that, the maximum we've paid Amazon before is $2,399, and this invoice is considerably higher than that previous supplier maximum. So these 2 things together deem this a high risk invoice. And this is certainly not an example of an invoice that I would want to approve, because the moment I do approve it, it'll go into your SAP B1 ready for a batch file to be created. So this is an example of an invoice that I'm going to tag the person who processed this and say, at Schrader, can you please call supplier and check the bank details first? And then I'll say, let me know how you go. So rather than emailing where your emails can be hacked into, I'll use this fully encrypted chat log here within the screen. I've left that back to the person that I want to investigate this. And for now, I want this going nowhere near SAP B1. So I'm going to go ahead and hit reject with a fully customizable list of reasons. So waiting on Shraddha to come back to me and reject. From here, the final section is that it does go to SAP B1, ready for you to create a bank file, either an ABA file if you're in Australia or an EFT if you're in New Zealand. And from there, this is the final section that our founders were kind of visualizing when they built the Trailed platform. So as soon as you have created a payment file, we will put a copy of that payment file directly into this payment section of Trailed. So I'll just pick up the latest one from SAP B1. And we're going to present it to you in a way that looks, a screen that looks like this. And what this is telling you is that all of these invoices in your batch file are looking pretty good. They're all low risk and you're paying them the same way that you normally pay this particular supplier. Anything problematic, we're going to push to the top. So you have these 4 invoices sitting in your batch file that still have a problem or risk associated. So this screen is for your CFO. This is for the person responsible for mitigating risk in your payments, but they may or may not have been involved on these invoices up until this point. It might well be the first time they're seeing these invoices, seeking their approval. So this first one is telling us that Office Max is in your batch file, sizable amount of money that you're about to pay Office Max. A couple of things wrong with these guys. First and foremost, ABN number, no longer valid on the Australian Business Register. That's a global check that we do. Second of all, you've never paid this particular supplier before. And finally, there should be no GST component here because they're not registered for GST purposes. Same with Viola Montreal. Again, about $1,031 you're about to pay them. No one else throughout the global economy is paying this supplier using this bank number. It's also a duplicate invoice number that you've already paid an invoice with this invoice number before. So this is a global verification check. We're not just checking your SAP B1 master data. We're checking to see is everyone else or anyone else that's paying Viola Montreal paying them into the bank account that you're about to. This last one for Target Freight Management, $17,000 odd, is telling me there's a variance. Now what variance means is that the amount that you're about to pay is higher than the value of the invoice. So to help the CFO out, we've put a little drop down arrow next to each of these invoices. If I click on the down arrow, rather than having to look into every single invoice to see where the problem is, it's going to tell me that that's the problem. There's the high risk invoice sitting in your batch file that's attracting these errors here. Same with the variance. There's the problem there. So if we kind of follow that bouncy ball along for this particular high risk one, when this invoice landed in Trailed, it landed for $1,048. When it got exported to SAP B1, it was also $1,048. But now in your batch file, it's $2,096. So something's happened there. Your batch file has been tampered with, either intentionally or unintentionally. But at least as the CFO, you are we are helping you to manage by exception. So you can just drill straight into this invoice rather than every single one. And it'll take you straight back to the invoice in question. It'll give you the full audit history of how this happened, when did the amount change, who changed the amount, who approved it, and kind of the full audit log to go ahead, to go hand in hand with that. So this is, it should never really get to this point because the process we went through to get it to the batch was that the AP clerk would have seen the risks, the approver would have seen any risk warnings, and now it's come into the batch file. So the idea is to correct it well before it gets to this point, but this will be your final check all, and we're checking the live batch to make sure that there's nothing there that is high risk. Of course, we'll never stop you from paying an invoice, but we are going to alert you to help you manage by exception here. If you're happy with the way this looks, you'd go to the bottom of the screen, you'd hit approve, and then you'd go ahead and release your payments as per normal. We also have supplier statement reconciliations, which is a very quick way to load up your statements and reconcile against any invoice sitting inside of Trailed, and also a digital filing cabinet so that all your invoices are stored here. If you're looking for an invoice very quickly, say from a company called Lock Repair Doctor, it will straight away take you into that supplier and take you into any invoices that you've got loaded against that particular supplier. But of course, all your invoices are sitting in SAP B1 as well upon us exporting it. So that was a very quick kind of end-to-end demo, I know. If there's kind of one thing to get out of the presentation, it really is that we are combining the twin issues together of efficiency and security, the mission being to make sure that no business is paying a fraudulent invoice and to alert you to that well before time. And if you would like to have kind of a bit more of an in-depth demo based on your current AP workflow, just to see if we could even be of any help at all, yeah, please do reach out and we'd be delighted to give you a one-on-one demo. But for now, thanks so much for your time, and yeah, I might hand it back to you, Warren.
Thanks, Shada, and thanks, David, for the presentations. Just a reminder, we'll be providing a video of today's session, so you'll be able to rewatch it, and I think we'll try and give you the presentations as well. And any questions that we spotted in the chat, we will make sure we get a resolution and answers back to you. So closing off today, I think we're just about right on time. Thank you very much all for attending, and we look forward to doing more of these in the future.